And welcome to the AV Forums podcast, streaming live on Wednesday, the 17th of February. And joining me on this edition, Ed Selley.
But the good news is the whiskey works.
And Tom Davies.
You're probably just having a midlife crisis. Have you bought a Porsche yet?
And welcome back to the AV Forums weekly podcast. Did you join us on Monday night? If you did, let us know what you think in the
I did.
in the chat section. And yes, you did. You joined us for half an hour anyway, Ed.
Yes.
I did notice that. Obviously, you had other commitments. So.
Well, you know, I'll see if I can avoid such a scheduling conflict next time. But I thought it was important to show some moral support, and it's nice to be on. It's nice to be on the other side of these things, just hurling insults in the comments section.
Yeah, you showed moral support by just highlighting my beardlessness. That was how
You just look extremely young without your beard. But,
yeah.
You know, and most of that's fueled by jealousy. Just work on that principle, and that's fine.
You should always take it as a compliment if we call you the 12-year-old. You really should. You should take that as a compliment. Because one day, all of a sudden, it'll go bam, and nobody will ever refer to you as young again. I used to base it on when I got asked for my age in shops, because it was for a long time I used to get asked my age in shops, and then just one day it never happened ever again.
To be honest, I did get ID. I requested ID'd, but I was wearing both a face mask, my glasses, and a beanie hat. So the amount of me that was visible to make a judgment on, I mean, obviously the moment that you can see my hair, the fact that it is extremely grey is usually a clue that I am in fact over 18. But
they asked you for your ID. You had a hat on, a mask on. What part of the photo? They were just looking at the eyes on the. Are those the same eyes?
No, I took my hat off and I went, no, you don't need to worry about it. So that was fair enough. But no, I mean, you know, you can't blame them, because let's face it, this is an underage person buying alcohol's year of brilliance, isn't it? You know, you only need to put on, you know, some middle-aged person clothes and a big hat and a good-sized mask, and you're able to go nuts.
Yeah, there's actually a sign in the local Spar that says, if you're buying age consent items, we will ask you to remove your mask. So they've obviously thought of that one.
They're wise to it.
Yeah, of course they are. Wise. The last time I got asked for my ID was actually in Vegas, and I was dead chuffed until I got told that everybody gets asked for ID when you order alcohol. So there you go. I thought I was on a winner there. ASL says, has Mr. Withers retired? Not that we were aware of. He just has other commitments for this month, so he won't be around for a little while. But he should be back. You'll
enjoy him all the more once he's back. That's the thing.
He should be back in March at some point if he bothers to come back or not. And yeah, it's been a busy old week. I got the phone call today, the one that everybody's waiting on.
Build number or VIN number and stuff.
No, COVID.
Oh right,
congratulations!
Splendid.
So I get jabbed on Monday. So
you can go and cough on people now.
No, I think it's 3 weeks before you're allowed to do that.
Before you're allowed to, yeah. Do keep us in the loop as to whether you're Team Pfizer or Team AstraZeneca.
Probably be AstraZeneca. It's not.
I thought that too, but my mum was Pfizer.
Well, my mum got Pfizer as well, but she'd gone to one of the large setups that obviously has the refrigeration units and so on.
Yeah.
Whereas it's a surgery that I'm going to, so I think it'll be AstraZeneca. But it doesn't matter what it is. They can jab my arm. I'm quite happy for that.
Inject it into my veins. So yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, yeah. Well, they seem to be kicking on with it anyway. They seem to be
absolutely
really bang on. So well done, NHS. It's kind of be easy to do that, but dead efficient, really efficient.
Isn't it amazing when you give the job to somebody who knows what they're doing rather than somebody who's never done anything like that before?
Are you saying like some kind of third-party company that have bid on the?
Hang on a second. Let's before we get all self-congratulatory here. There is
free
also
market defender Ed is coming in.
Well, no, but let's face it. We have purchased all of these vaccines under ruthless venture capitalist terms, and it's interesting. It's not Kate Bingham that said this. It was Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, who's done exactly the same thing. Going, did we pay over the odds compared to some other people? Yes, we did, but compared to the cost of lockdown per day, it's absolutely inconsequential. So yeah, it's been there's after getting an awful lot of things wrong. Let's be clear about this. It's an interesting example of dovetailing two wildly different things to actually work together quite nicely.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm looking forward to that because it should it make things easier going forward, and hopefully we can all get back to some normality by August at least. That's kind of what the time I'm putting on it anyway. If we're allowed to play it, it'll be by then. So not long left in the jail cells, people. We'll get out soon. What have you been doing, Tom, since Monday?
Well, not that much. Today I had 2 new comics arrive. That's been the highlight of my week. There are Doctor Strange collections from the 70s. Well, one from the 70s and one more recent that got postponed from.
Is it an actual example from the 1970s, or is it a reprint?
Oh, it's just the latest trade paperback of reprint.
Oh, right, fine.
From the 70s. Previously available in like a super expensive omnibus edition, but
I was about to, because I know that new old comics it's up there with rare records in ways to spend a truly staggering sum of money. So I have a couple of stupidly valuable Judge Dredd and Spider-Mans, and it's a stupid habit to pick up because it's paper and it's going to dissolve eventually. So, but yeah, no, these are just reprints. Tom. And I do love my Doctor Strange, so I was very pleased to finally get those in the post. And that's it. That's the highlight of my week. Everything else has just been same old, same old. Fair enough.
Okay, I've been glossing.
Painting, presumably.
Yes. And then woke up the following day, every muscle in my, because I was doing skirting boards. So skirting boards and door frames, and my intention was I'll do the skirting boards, door frames Saturday, then I'll do the rest Sunday. I could hardly move on Sunday because I've sat on my arse for a year at this desk, done very little exercise other than walking on the odd day and so on. So obviously being down on the floor and exerting myself, I was in pain. I mean, my calf muscles, the back of my legs, I could hardly move. So I've vowed now that I really should be doing a bit more.
And you can cheer yourself up because obviously all modern gloss paint doesn't have whatever lethal chemical is required to stop it yellowing over time. So you'll have to do it again reasonably soon as well. So cheer up.
Yeah. At least it wasn't, the smell wasn't overly over the top.
Or at least that's what you said to the elephant that was helping.
Yeah. Well, you mean that pink elephant wasn't there?
This is a contextual matter, isn't it? If you say it was there and you're the only other person in the house, who are you to say that it wasn't? So
running into the realms of Zen here, aren't we?
And I mean, obviously the weather hasn't been great over the last week, which has meant that deliveries haven't been made and things haven't been picked up. So at least it's not peak season at the minute. We're not expecting loads of kit, but I have had kit delayed. So I was expecting to be a little bit further on than I should have been. However, I did get a multi-channel amplifier from Emotiva, so which I will be here for long-term use. So looking forward to setting that up in the cinema room. It's going to help with the processor reviews that are coming up. So thank you very much to them for providing that. It's going to be here for a little while, so we'll see how good it is. It's already been reviewed. Steve reviewed it a few months back. So if you're interested in that, you can go and read the review.
You can already read it. So that's how
which is great. I don't have to do any more work. Fantastic. Ed, what have you been doing?
Well, I haven't been glossing, but I am injured. I have done something to my back. I believe it involved a pair of Bowes & Wilkins 603 anniversaries. So actually not that heavy, but they are cumbersome. So I've pinched or trapped something in my lower back. So earlier on the Skype group that we use before we switch over to Zoom for the actual podcast, I was debating whether I was going with wine or codeine, or whether I was going all in and doing both. Decided against both. I've gone for wine.
We could have sold tickets for that one. That would have been entertaining.
Well, I mean, don't rule anything out in the weeks to come. Depends how it sorts itself out. But no, I've gone with wine and ibuprofen. for this one. So yes, I've been slightly injured, but nothing a year in the tropics wouldn't fix. I've been working on all sorts of different things, some of which we'll be covering. It's been half-term week, although it doesn't make a huge amount of difference in the great scheme of things.
Who would know?
Well, exactly. But I've had the boy all today. We went out for a nice walk in the morning, which was good before it started raining. And then I'm afraid I've done parenting by abandonment in the afternoon. He's been on the PlayStation and the iPad and stuff. He's getting very good at Among Us. So my apologies if you're playing him on the multiplayer. Yeah, that's basically it. Oh, and it occurred to me a couple of days ago, I was looking at myself, I am an even fatter bastard than usual. So I've had to gently tweak my planned eating for the next couple of weeks to try and rein some of that in. So
next couple of weeks, I think mine will be the next 6 months. I bought 2 books today. It's the Michael Mosley diet thing that's getting raved about, so I'm going to give that a go.
I'm gonna just rub it in a little bit and say that I've lost a stone since January. So screw you.
That goes to get with the no drinking thing. I just essentially I have not adjusted my diet to cater for that. I'm just not going out as much, not walking into town as often, stuff like that. So some slight alterations to that here and there. I am blessed. Despite being a gigantic fat bastard, I'm blessed with a reasonably tidy metabolism. So it doesn't take huge changes to my behavior to change stuff up. So, we'll do that, see where we go. And it's all, again, it plays into the cooking with different things, just trying to maintain some level of flavor and excitement when you can't use fat. So, see where we go.
It is difficult though, Ed, when you're trapped in a prison cell like we have been, and your only escape or your only way of walking around the house is to go to the fridge.
Well, there is that.
That's my downside.
To be honest, I've been actually my downside. I don't want to blame them entirely, but with the new Lidl opening in walking distance, I'll walk to the Lidl, and then obviously Lidl just sells random. They sell Ritter Sports for 99p.
Yeah. So what did you buy? A couple of jumpsuits or?
No. I've left the middle aisle. I've left the middle aisle alone for now. It's one of those things where the middle aisle, for the most part, I just look at it with a degree of incomprehension. It's like I don't need an Airfix model kit or a shredder, or So I just let it be.
I'll tell you what though, if you're into your power tools, look out for the power tool stuff, because I've got some excellent power tools out there for like £8-9, which you'd pay well over 60 elsewhere, and they've held up. They haven't gone bang yet. So
how we've known one another for quite a long time. Have I ever given any indication at all that I have any functional interest in power tools?
It wasn't really for you, Ed. You see, on our podcast, when you things like that, and I'm giving you that example, it's more to the audience than you.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, as I say, I have read about power tools. I am aware of their existence.
Yeah. I mean, but I don't claim to be proficient in them, but I'm still, you walk past an angle grinder and you think, I bet I could find some angles to grind.
Many years ago, I worked as a student holiday job for Southern Water, maintaining and repairing what they call wastewater treatment sites, but we know them as sewage works. And I had a crash course in welding, which ended up with me putting the end of the welder into my wrist on a raining hillside in the middle of nowhere, and smelling yourself cooking and realizing that you've also put the welder into your wrist on basically a sort of tetanus hotspot. I don't know, that pretty much cured me of any desire to do any sort of industrial. I'm quite happy to acknowledge my limitations on this. If I look at something and go, that's a power tool job, obviously locked down, non-conditional, I just get a man in, or a lady. I get someone in who knows what they're doing, because in the long run it costs me less.
Okay, well, we don't have the competition guru on the podcast tonight because Kaz isn't here. So you're going to have to fill in, Ed. Can you give us the current competitions?
Oh, good God. Right, let me open the jobby. Thankfully, oh no, has it reopened after? I had to do an emergency. I apologise. I look like I'm broadcasting from an 80s American sitcom this evening. For whatever reason, the webcam on this laptop just crapped the bed in no uncertain terms about 20 minutes before the podcast began. So, current competitions. You can win a Denon Home Soundbar 550 worth $5.99. It was a cracking prize. We've got a bunch of new 4K and Blu-ray competitions, including Elysium in 4K, Criterion's February Blu-ray titles, Batman Soul of the Dragon, Tin Star, Liverpool, and the Mask of the Red Death, Mask, whatever, all on Blu-ray. There's also a Patreon exclusive competition to win a copy of It's a Sin on Blu-ray. So head over to avforums.com/competitions to enter, and they are eligible basically to everyone in the UK except Phil.
Yeah. Previous winners?
Hold on. We got some of those? We do. Cos22998. Lots of Coses, it would seem. On a copy of 2012 in 4K, Patreon exclusive. Well done, you. Enjoy the worst final line of any film ever released in history. Sarah 7 won a copy of Muscle on Blu-ray, so well done to you too. And you should stay tuned for the podcast exclusive competition to win a copy of Whiplash on 4K, which is a cracking prize, but it means that one of us is going to have to operate Kaz's mystery competition machine. So I don't know how that's going to go.
Yeah, ain't going to be me. Right, so that's competition. That's what you can win. And stay tuned, obviously, for the podcast special coming up. And yeah, we're going to go to hardware next.
If you'd like to support the AV Forums podcast on a regular basis, then why not become a patron? Head over to patreon.com/AV Forums to sign up. You can also make a one-off donation through the Super Chat or via streamlabs.com/AV Forums. All donations help us to improve the website and the podcasts. Thank you to all our supporters.
So moving on to hardware, we have a couple of subjects that we're going to go through this evening in some detail. Basically, when it comes to your TV, what are the best settings? It's one of these things that I get asked on a regular basis, and when I give the answer, sometimes it disappoints people because they expect something a little bit more, a little bit magical, a little bit, secret squirrel, and so on. And when it comes to setting up your TV, it really shouldn't be very difficult. The problem when it comes to setting up a TV, and I'm sure Ed will back me up on this, is that a lot of the picture modes on a TV are incredibly bright and colourful. And the one thing that always pops out is something that's bright and colourful. So if you're flicking through the settings on your TV and you go through normal and vivid and dynamic and so on, and then you end up at movie usually looks
very subdued.
dull, subdued, and it looks yellow. And if you then flick through the rest of the presets, what you tend to find, or your eye tells you that the white looks white in standard mode. And that's really not the case, because video white requires red, and it requires green, and it requires blue. And the thing is that in standard mode, it's got far too much blue and not enough red and green. In fact, it's got very little red and very little green, and it has a huge amount of blue. And we're talking about the white balance. Now, you need to have the white balance correct. That's the color of white. So all the other colors look correct and actually track correctly. And the reason for this is that your content, and I'm trying to think of this in the simplest terms possible without getting overly technical, but the content that you watch on your TV, whether it be football, whether it be the news, whether it be feature film, they're all made within an envelope. So they're all made within the same standards. And those cameras that are used, the editing facilities that are used, the software that's used, they all work within standards, and they all work within an envelope. So everything looks correct. If you think of Avatar, and you think of the 300 digital artists that work on that, and the 300 screens that they need to look at, if those screens didn't look the same and give the correct representation of color, then you would have some very strange looking end results when it came to special effects and everything else, nothing matching up. And this is why everything works within an envelope, because once you've set up to that envelope, you can do anything you like inside that, and directors can do anything like inside that. So good example, Steven Spielberg, War of the Worlds. It's incredibly desaturated, and it's incredibly over the top in terms of basically just burning away detail and looking really over the top. But if your TV is set to the correct standards, the same standards that that film was made and graded at, you'll see it as exactly as it should be. Red will be the same red that was on the screen when they graded it. And this is the whole purpose of this. Now, the one downside to it is that a calibrated image or a correct image, when put up against standard mode or vivid or dynamic, it looks dull. And the one thing that you can do to help this is to go and watch movie mode or ISF mode or THX mode on your TV for a week. You do that for a week. Set the brightness for your room. So as long as you set it to the movie mode or the correct mode on your TV, whether that's ISF, whether it's THX, whether it's, we're going to mention Filmmaker mode in a second, then make sure the brightness, so that's the panel brightness. So if it's an LCD or an OLED, that's how bright the whole panel is, not the brightness control, which controls the black level. Set that to the correct brightness for your room, so one that's comfortable, so it's bright enough that you can see what's going on within the image, and it's not too bright that it's going to affect your eyesight if you change the lighting in your room. And live with it for a week. And then when you go to standard mode, you'll suddenly realize just how blue that white has been and just how off that picture has been and how much detail you've been missing. And it will look odd to start with. It will look yellow, but that's because you're getting the right mix of red, green, and blue. Whereas in standard mode, all you're getting is blue, a little bit of green, and hardly any red. And in dynamic mode, well, you ain't getting any green and red in there when it comes to the white balance. And again, we're talking about the white balance here, not the color. But the other thing is that if you're watching in standard mode or any mode that's not cinema or ISF and so on, the color that you're seeing is false. That color does not exist. The color is oversaturated and it's over the top. So when it comes to watching a movie, the one thing that a director does do is he uses color to tell a story, and it's subtle. But the example that we always give is the Matrix, because when they're in the Matrix, it's a certain color, and when they're not in the Matrix, it's another color. And if you've got it set up wrong, you get normal mode or standard mode. And most people go to those because they're called normal and standard. It's too blue, and you're changing the white point, and all your colors are all over the place. So if you want to watch the content on your TV the way it's intended to be seen, you want to see all the detail that's possible within the image, you want to see colors correctly and so on, then it seems counterintuitive when you look at it to begin with, but that mode, that cinema mode, the movie mode, ISF, professional mode, professional 1 and 2, whatever TV it is that you have and so on, set it to that and live with it for a little while. Don't dismiss it straight away. If at the end of the week you're not convinced, then fine. It's your TV, you've spent your money on it, you go and change it. But just be aware that when you are changing it into vivid mode, dynamic mode, or standard or normal, you're basically, I don't want to use the word fake because there's too many journalists out there and TV reviewers and so on that suddenly say, oh, this is fake HDR or this is fake color or whatever. I don't want to go that route, but the color that you're seeing is not correct. Those colors did not exist when the film or the TV program was graded, and TV programs are graded the same as films. I've been to many production facilities around the world through the work that I do with AV Forums. I've been lucky to do that, and every single piece of content goes through color grading. And what is color grading? It's not just adding color to something. Color grading is where all the shots are made to look the same. So you've got to remember there's probably about 3 or 4 different cameras, especially in TV. There'll be 3 or 4, maybe even more if it's football or whatever, different cameras shooting the same thing, and they'll all look slightly different. All the cameras, all the scenes will look slightly different. The reason they use color grading is to make sure that everything looks the same. So when you have a cut to another camera, it looks the same as camera A, camera B, camera C, camera D. They all look the same. They won't at the time of filming, or they'll try and get them as close as possible at the time of filming, but there'll still be differences. So that's what color grading is. Color grading is that, and it's also the choice that the director and the director of photography will make in terms of how they want their image to look, what they want the picture to look like. What is great this year, I've been banging on about it, and again, I'm going to bang on it again tonight because I think it's one of the biggest advances, really, that we've seen for a number of years. And that is the fact that all the manufacturers, bar Sony, because Sony like to do their own thing, but everybody else has signed up to Filmmaker mode this year. And Filmmaker mode is a mode that you switch to where it will switch off all the processing that's going on in the background. There will be no image smoothing. There'll be no noise reduction going on that you don't want. It switches everything off, and it gives you D65 white point, which is what you want for HDR and for SDR. So standard definition and high definition, and HDR, high dynamic range, and standard dynamic range. It will set the TV up correctly for that. So you get the image as it's intended to be seen. And the fact that all the manufacturers, bar Sony, are doing this is fantastic. Now, I say bar Sony. Sony do the custom mode, and it is pretty accurate. Sony obviously have a huge professional division, as do Panasonic. When it comes to content creation, Sony do a lot of the monitors and all the rest of it. So I don't know why they haven't signed up to Filmmaker mode. Maybe they will this year, maybe they will next year. Maybe it's just something that doesn't quite align with their corporate strategy at the minute, but everybody else has. And if you've got Filmmaker mode on your TV, what I would suggest is just give it a go. Give it a go for a week and give yourself the opportunity to see an image that is accurate and is correct. Because I see everybody on the forum say, I want my TV calibrated. But then when you mention, we'll put it in movie mode and set, the color balance to warm 2 and your gamma to 2.2 if you're in a bright room, or 2.4 if you're in a dark room, or BT 1886. And then you get the, well, I don't really like that. Well, if somebody comes and calibrates your TV, that's how it's going to look.
Congratulations, you paid money for it to look like that.
So yeah, give it a chance. Don't dismiss it straight away. And I know it's easy to dismiss it straight away. So the main thing is, go on ahead.
Son of SJ has just raised a question that was rattling around. How does Filmmaker mode differ from having a normal calibration done? Mr. Withers has visited me 4 times to do various calibrations. Will Filmmaker mode put him and other calibrators out of business?
Right. The last question first, will it put calibrators out of business? No, it won't, because obviously each panel is different. It could be the same model. There will be slight differences. What Filmmaker mode tries to do is it tries to capture the best case, and it tries to do it a lot closer than something like THX. Now, THX, they never released the actual figures that they went for, but I think it was a delta E of between 6 and 9 would get a pass. Now, delta E3 and below is where you no longer visibly see any error. So if you can get it under 3, and I'm getting sounding complicated here, but it's actually easy to follow. If it goes under 3, then you can't see it. Normal people probably can't see any errors in the image. If it's over that, you will be able to see some errors like yellow tint or whatever. And that's where THX was. Whereas Filmmaker mode tends to be a bit more accurate. It's really shooting for giving you as accurate as possible without the expensive equipment and all the rest of it. Plus, we've got manufacturers like Samsung who are doing their app on a TV, which, again, it's going to be interesting to see how that works, because generally, I mean, the one thing I want people to do is get out of standard mode, get out of normal mode, put it into cinema, movie, ISF, Pro, whatever it is that's the accurate one on your TV. And we've got a whole picture perfect, which is still valid, even though it was done quite a number of years ago now. A lot of the advice in there is still valid right up to today. Find the one that's close enough on your set. And you are getting pretty close to how it's supposed to be seen, how you're supposed to, what red is supposed to look like, what the color balance should look like. That's the best way of doing it. Does Filmmaker mode differ from having a normal calibration? Yes, it does, because a normal calibration, what you're paying for is you're paying for that calibrator to turn up with incredibly expensive kit. Now, the Klein K10A that I use for the calibration measurements and so on, and for calibration TV reviews and all the rest of it, you're looking at about £6,500 just for that meter.
Bargain.
You then need a device that's going to give you a signal. So you need a pattern generator, and you need one that can also inject HDR metadata into that and give you various PQ, UTF curves and all the rest of it. So something like that will cost you at least £2,000 upwards. Then you need other bits and pieces. You need a laptop, which is quite expensive. You then need the calibration software. Again, you're looking at £2,500 for the full package, maybe £3,000. So you're looking at about £10,000 worth of kit, basically. That's what a calibrator will turn up with. A lot of calibrators will also have spectroradiometers on top of that, so like a Jetty meter and so on. So you could be talking many thousands of pounds worth of a kit, which will be incredibly accurate. And you can guarantee that at the end of the day, you're paying the £250, £300 for a calibration. It will look superb. And they're not just there to do the picture, they will do the full chain, your full video chain. So they'll make sure that your player is set up correctly, that it's outputting the correct signal to the TV. They'll check your AVR is also not adding anything if you're going through the AVR and so on. So they will check the whole video chain. So there's a lot of work involved with that. It usually takes about 4 or 5 hours to do it properly. If your calibrator turns up at your house and you're paying them 300 or 400 quid and they're there for an hour and all they do is calibrate the grayscale and do
press a couple of things in a row, I'm done now. Bye.
Yeah. And believe me, there's a couple out there that do that. Yeah, you need to be asking them questions. You really need to be, making sure that you're getting your money's worth out of that. But what I'm talking about tonight is not really calibration. We'll come on to that in future episodes. What I really wanted to get across was the fact that, you can get very, very close these days. If you have a modern TV that has Filmmaker on board, so any 2020 TV, you're getting incredibly accurate images. And Stuart's been playing some of the picture perfect stuff with the examples. That's not over the top. Those examples that we're showing there, that's what dynamic and vivid mode looks like. That's how much detail you're losing in the image when you look at those. So it's one of these things that it's hard to get across on a forum when you're writing posts on a forum and you're trying to give people advice, because there's so many little things that can get in the way. And the main thing is when you're flicking between the picture modes, because, I put my hands up, an accurate image compared to normal, vivid or dynamic, it looks dull. I've seen some reviewers who don't, get into the whole image fidelity and so on, and they don't understand it, and they will rubbish the best settings on the TV. They will rubbish it because it looks dull. They don't understand that that's how it should look. And if you just watch the TV for a week like that, it'll open your eyes when you switch back to standard mode, just how blue, just how much detail was missing, how faces looked really quite plasticine because there was detail missing and so on. So if you're going to do anything with your TV, and even at the end of the week you don't like it, then fair enough. At least you've given it a go, and if it's not for you, it's not for you. But if you want to see film content the way it's supposed to be seen, and believe me, filmmakers spend hours agonizing over the color palette of their film, because just certain tones of blues and greys and cyans can inject mood. I mean, if I say Terminator 2 to you, Tom, explain the look of Terminator 2 back to me.
Oh boy, I saw it at the cinema last year, the 4K master of it, and it looked like a cartoon in some points. Like the real humans looked CGI. It was so weird. Like the detail of it was.
Yeah, maybe that was a bad example.
Sorry.
But the color palette. Think of the color palette, because the Terminator 2 has a very obvious color to it, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, sure. It's so you've got like the cold blues basically all the way through.
Yeah, and that's the look that Cameron was going for. He was going for that cyany blue look, because blue does trick the eye. It tricks the eye into thinking that there is a brightness there, and that you're seeing a little bit more detail and so on. And that's why filmmakers, most color palettes do have a touch of cyan to them. They do have a touch of blue to them, because it has a way of that. But it can also change your mood. And if it's a romantic scene, adding in reds is a good trick that directors use, even if it's really mild, because subconsciously it plays on the mind. It's also telling the story for you and leading you along. So, this stuff, it's not about set your TV to this and it'll be fantastic. It's about set the TV to this because you're going to get so much more out of the content that you watch. You're going to get more of that. You're going to see it as it's supposed to be seen. And I see it on the forums, people want to calibrate their TV and they say, well, I use these calibration settings. And what basically it is, they've just mucked with the settings. If you're just messing about with the settings, that's not calibration. Calibration means that you are measuring to a specific point.
Against a benchmark.
It has to be a benchmark. You're measuring against a standard. The standard is laid out to say what it should look like. And the mastering studio will use that standard. The director of photography is going to use that standard. The equipment that they're using, it's all within that envelope. So when it comes to your TV, just setting it to the same settings and within that envelope, you're guaranteeing yourself that you're going to see exactly what is supposed to be seen and so on. And again, it's not people, we're not trying to knock you over the head and say this is right and you're going to do it. But if you want the best out of your kit, and that's what we all want at the end of the day, and why wouldn't you want to watch a film the way it's supposed to be seen? I don't understand the argument in the opposite camp, because basically you're saying, well, Spielberg doesn't know what he's doing. I'm better than Spielberg.
In fairness, Phil, I want to see the 90-second cut of Jerry Maguire. I don't want to hear how it's supposed to be seen, because it's one of the worst, as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the worst films ever made. So there are caveats to this, but no, I know what you're saying. I want to see a color correct 90-second cut of Jerry Maguire. So
let's quickly go through some of these questions as they're coming in while I'm talking about this, so we're not going back to it at the end. A lot of them talking about Steve. I would never invite Steve into my house. Right, so is calibrating other modes or concentrate just on one mode? Yeah, just concentrate on one mode, because like I say, everything that gets produced content-wise, it's all within the same envelope. The only differences I would suggest that you maybe want to make is a day and night mode. So if your room is particularly bright during the day, then you want to have the brightness up a little bit. You want to have gamma around about 2.2. That's probably the best way to do it for a bright living room. And then if it gets a bit darker at night, then maybe have a night setting as well, which is a little bit darker, BT 1886 or 2.4 on your gamma for your TV. And that's the way I would do it. In terms of other things like watching sports and so on, you might want to put a sports mode in, but again, you're going to use the same cinema mode, the same white balance of warm 2, and the same gamma. The only thing you might want to change is the motion settings, if you're watching football, for example. But you just want to lightly put the settings on. You don't want to go too high, because if you go too high with a lot of the motion settings, you add in more artifacts and it looks terrible. And of course you get soap opera effect as well. And I would only recommend that you do that with some video that you're watching. But everything else can be set the same. Whether it's Netflix, whether it's UHD disc, whether it's the TV tuner and so on, you'll have to set the different inputs to the same settings for them all. Sometimes you can set global settings and then click a button that says apply all, and it'll apply it to every input. Other TVs like the Philips, you have to go to every single input and put the same settings in, but that shouldn't take you too long. If you can get hold of a demo disc like Spears and Munsell or DVE, which is quite old now, you could probably pick that up in the classifieds for
it's
a $5.
It's in the middle aisle.
It might turn up in the middle aisle. And you can use those plugge patterns for correctly setting your brightness and your contrast. But what I've found with testing hundreds of TVs over the last few years is that normally the default settings for brightness and contrast are normally bang on now that we're, in the digital age and we're getting there in terms of input signal and so on. Generally, the out of the box in terms of brightness and contrast are usually correct. I have only seen one TV in the last year where it wasn't correct, and that was the LG C10, and it had a bit of a bug with the brightness, which was causing floating blacks, but that was fixed by either clicking one up or one down. Let's just see if there's anything else in here. Biscuits. No, I don't need biscuits. Ken, I accept what Mr. Hinton says about Filmmaker not being the same as normal cabbage. However, one similarity is the time it takes to get used to the new settings, about a week. Yep, that's what I'm saying. Give it a week, and then come back and give us your comments. So if you're not in Filmmaker mode or movie mode or ISF and what, then let's do a group experiment if you're listening to the podcast. If you're listening live or you're listening during the week or whatever, set it into the correct settings for creator's intent, and then give us your feedback. Let's see where we can take this conversation, because at the end of the day, we all want to watch stuff the way it's supposed to be seen. I don't get any of the arguments saying otherwise. So let's get the absolute best out of our kit. So yeah, if you have any questions like that, put them in the chat window, put them in the forum underneath this podcast, in the podcast forum. Easy to find the podcast forum. It's right at the bottom of the forums. That's where we deserve to be. That's right at the bottom. We'll lurk at the bottom.
Dungeon tier.
Near the feedback forum.
As a layperson as well, just because obviously my background's not in the technology side of things, but having joined the forums not actually that long ago, and seeing the TV on the settings as gone through the guide on AVF, like I was astonished by what I'd been used to for so many years, just accepting that, TV out the box, and that's what it looks like. But when you actually go through the process, you realize just like, why was I putting up with that before? How did I not see that it was? And yeah, it was a revelation, to be honest. So do it.
Yeah. Does this work for Xbox and PlayStation as well? Yeah. Just make sure, obviously things are getting really complicated when it comes to consoles now, and the various settings that you have to play about with. But yes, just treat them as a source like you would with a UHD player and so on. Make the changes on the TV, not within the source player, unless, like the Xbox and PlayStation, there's a couple of quirky things that you do have to switch on or switch off. So I'll go into that in a little bit more detail, Gary, once I've got a PS5 and an Xbox to play with for a little while and find out what the correct settings are. But yes, it's not going to be the same for everybody, and it will look dark to start with. I know Daniel says the picture was too dark to the extent that you lost detail. Then it's not set up correctly. If you're losing detail,
no. To be fair, it was specifically for YouTube. And the problem there is that, going back to what we were saying about everything being shot to a benchmark, that's the one source of content where that doesn't necessarily apply.
All right, sorry, I missed that.
So you may need to toggle out for YouTube, because even actually some quite professional looking bits of videography on YouTube do not adhere to the same standards as Phil was talking about there. I mean, I make no bones about the fact that on the rare occasions that I've generated video for AVF, I'm sure that Phil's done his best to try and sort it out once I've sent it, but the rigorous appraisal of color balance has not been applied whilst I've been doing it. So
no, but it doesn't have to be. This is what I was kind of saying, Ed. As long as the camera that you're using abides by the rules that are set down, so it's shooting legally. And when I say legally, that is that it shoots within the standards, within the envelope. As long as it's doing that, then it can be corrected and it can be made to look the way it should.
The thing is, though, as you know, a lot of people aren't.
Oh, absolutely. On YouTube, no, they're shooting stuff on mobile phones on YouTube the majority of the time, and even some of the nice cinematography stuff looks odd. But yes, another thing is, don't be scared to use the panel brightness, whether it's LCD or OLED, to brighten up the picture. Once you've set it to cinema, gamma correct, and the correct color point, if it still looks a little bit dark for your surroundings, like you've got some lights on in the room or whatever, don't be scared to adjust the brightness of the panel. That's not the brightness control for black level, but the actual whole, either it's the backlight or with an OLED, it's the panel. you can brighten that up so it gets to a brighter level, so it's more balanced within the room. Don't be scared of doing that. I think a lot of people just assume that if you go into filmmaker mode, which I think on the LGs is certainly 25 or 35 in terms of the panel luminance, you can bump that right up. Don't be scared of that. It's not going to push the white balance out too much. I've done lots of measurements with this, and you can almost put it up to 100% and it won't have that big an effect. Certainly it won't have as big an effect as switching to standard mode and everything suddenly turning blue and you're losing detail in people's faces and all the rest of it. So
I keep thinking about that Eiffel 65 song when I was at university, Blue Dabba Dee. Even talking about this, it's stuck in my head now. Thanks, Phil.
But I mean, one of the things I always pointed out, trying to explain this for years, and I've been explaining this and trying to get this across for nearly 20 years now. We used to go and give presentations to manufacturers long before there was ever calibration controls on your TVs. I'd gone and given them talks and had meetings with them about why we wanted this and why it'd be a great upsell for them to include these controls and all the rest of it. But the thing I always used to say to people is, do you remember the DAS doorstep challenge? Your whites are white.
Mm-hmm.
Your whites were never white, they were blue, because if you look at the powder, inside the powder is a blue dye. Which is applied to your clothes when it washes your whites, and it fools the eye into thinking whites are whiter. And if you actually look at white for a while, your eye gets used to seeing, what is an accurate white and what's not an accurate. An accurate white is, it'll look yellow to you to start with because it's got the right amount of red and green in there. Whereas if it's too much blue, you can start to notice that. But I'm not going to keep going on about this. I think we all kind of get the point that I'm trying to get across here. So let's do it as a group experiment. If you're not in movie mode, if you're not calibrated at the minute, then please just do it for a week.
Give it a whirl.
Give it a whirl. See what you think.
What's the worst that can happen?
Well, that's it. And if you're seeing things the way they're supposed to be seen, then great. Talking about Picture Perfect as well, we are going to update Picture Perfect in the near future. We're not going to redo all the videos because everything within the videos is still relevant today than it was when we originally did Picture Perfect. There'll be one video that just updates and obviously adds in filmmaker mode and other things that we've seen coming along, like the Samsung app, which I'm dying to check that out this year because you can use it with your mobile phone, set the app, and do a rough calibration using that. So, and the cameras now in the phones are so good that I can believe it'll get quite accurate. I think it will be really interesting to do a calibration like that and then check it with our uber expensive gear and just see how close it actually gets and how good a tool that'll be. Right, so we'll come back to this. We're always going to keep coming back to picture quality. It's one of the things that everybody wants to know, what are the best settings and so on. Well, we've just told you what the best settings are tonight, so hopefully you'll go away and try that, come back next week and then tell us that we're absolutely off our heads, or you'll agree with us. Lockdown is happening.
Now you see, we've done 20 odd minutes. I think that can possibly wait. Shall we do the news-ish story, because in some ways it relates to lockdown anyway. And okay. I think it's interesting in its own right, and it gives the prospect for Tom that he will be able to say something in a short space of time. So
you obviously haven't been paying attention, Ed. You keep the movie guy right to the end.
Well, we'll see how we go. But this I think this is interesting, and I think it's worthy of discussion because there is a news story, and the news story went live on the forums about an hour ago. A press release came out last night with very little fanfare that Sennheiser, which is still very much a family-owned concern, is looking to hive off their consumer audio section. Sennheiser exists in 4 sections at the moment: consumer, pro, business, and Neumann microphones. They bought Neumann microphones a very long time ago. They're very much part of Sennheiser's core things, and they are looking to hive off consumer audio. Now, I dropped this into the podcast, into the Skype conversation this morning. Andrew has very, very kindly got the story together. I've tried to read around this a bit today, and there was an interview elsewhere with the Sennheiser brothers. I'm beginning to wonder if this is not as drastic a move as you know, from our perspective, as might be first associated. Because when Sennheiser says they want to seek a development partner or sell, these are two separate options on the table, their consumer audio business. It's hard to work out what Sennheiser classifies as a consumer headphone and what they can classify as a pro headphone. So many of the models that we consider, you know, stalwarts of Sennheiser's range are listed as pro models as much as they are consumer models. So this could almost be seen to the fact that Sennheiser is looking to find a partner to help them with the headphones that don't have a cable, whilst they continue to do all the work with the headphones that do. I'm quite content that actually I might be proved, I can be proved wrong on that, and a number of wired headphones make the transition across as well. But I don't think it's as simple as this initial press release states. It's almost as if, having looked at what they're doing numbers on and what's working for them, they're keeping some of the, if you like, the crown jewel headphones that we've come to know and love. And this is about finding a development partner for some of the products that we've looked at on the forums. The Ambio soundbar being one outside of my remit, but then the Momentum wireless and some of the wireless earbuds and stuff like that. It's a very interesting, just the more that they were pressed in the interview, it's not 100% clear what it is they're actually looking to part company with. And whether this, just to put this into a degree of perspective, what we were possibly going to talk about, and we will talk about in another podcast, is that lockdown has been tremendously successful for manufacturers. Many manufacturers are back ordered to the eyeballs, but it's been quite specific on what people are and aren't buying. So I was going to ask if people have felt that their next purchase plans had been changed by lockdown, and and if they're not immediately heading back into work, they're going to continue working from home for the foreseeable future, if that's changing. And I'm wondering if this has had an effect on Sennheiser, because if you're dealing with up there at the moment on the right of the screen, the Sennheiser Momentum wireless, that's a perfect headphone for commuting, but nobody's commuting, and so on and so forth. And I'm intrigued as to whether this news is about them going back to core values and then doing the lifestyle-y items with another supporting manufacturer. But at the moment, obviously, we're only 24 hours into this, so I wait to see with bated breath how this is going to turn out.
Yeah, I've got to say the professional side is, I've probably dealt with more of the Sennheiser stuff from the professional side, like radio microphones. We use them obviously in our video production, have done for 15 years now. Been using Sennheiser stuff and still using some of the original kit that we've always used. I mean, I've got one sitting next to me here. These radio mic packs, we use these for doing the videos and so on. So they're lapel mics, but also the handheld stuff. And if you ever watch live video of bands and all the rest of it, it used to be Shure SM58 used to be the mic of choice for a lot of artists. Nowadays, it's Sennheiser microphones that you see. So the pro side of the business is obviously doing incredibly well, because they have really taken over, and even from a headset point of view as well. I mean, I'm wearing a Sennheiser headset tonight. I mean, it's one that has a microphone and all the rest of it, but
that's still part of the business thing. That's still, they have no intention of parting with that. I mean, obviously, they announced 600 phased redundancies in 2020. So obviously, everything is not sunbeams and light in how things are running, but. As I say, there's an ambiguity over what Sennheiser. Many headphones that you would regard as, entirely suitable for home use are classified as pro. So I just wait to see what they're actually going to get shot of in this proposed partnership undertaking. But I mean, the other thing, of course, is that this is a recognition that with a number of companies, I mean, Apple obviously first and foremost amongst them, if you want the best wireless performance with your iPhone, with the best will in the world, you have to go with Apple's products. They operate on a tier of Bluetooth which is just not being made available to anybody else's stuff. So with what's been a bit of a bonanza for manufacturers for some time, there are signs that it's going to start being locked down and partitioned a bit. So whether this is also a little bit preemptive as well remains to be seen. But yeah, this arrived last night. I thought it was worth bringing up because a number of manufacturers have had a very good 2020, and it goes back to the sort of things that we're looking at to bolster our sitting at home on our asses experience. But this is the other end of the scale where a product category for a manufacturer that was doing quite nicely for them took a bit of a kicking in 2020. So we'll have to see if there's any more of these to come.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, and it always is when we see stuff like this. Lots of companies have been changing hands recently as well. So
yes,
there is a new normal, as it were, in the hi-fi world, Ed, and it's going to be interesting to see once we start to progress a little bit more in 21 and into 22, just how these things impact the business and how successful they're going to be.
Yes. And it goes back to what I've said this a couple of times, because I am fundamentally a pessimistic human being. A number of manufacturers have to remember that they've had some people have had a very good lockdown because people have diverted holiday money into improving their domestic experience. But these purchases are still fundamentally scheduled. Just because they've been brought forward doesn't mean that the next one's going to happen when it was originally going to. So we as an industry have to be ready for a fallow period at some point, either towards the end of this year, start of the next, and companies have to budget for that. Otherwise, they're going to be in a spot of bother.
Well, I was surprised with it, Ed. There was the amount of TV announcements we had in January. I was not expecting that.
I don't know, all the feedback that we had, the chat from GFK and then anecdotal. I mean, obviously the plural of anecdotes is not data. I am well aware of this, but anecdotally, the number of people I know who've changed their television in the last year, essentially it comes down to the fact you had money earmarked for going away at some point in 2020. You didn't go away in 2020. You are aware that you are sat for long periods of time in your house. You're just going to gravitate towards making those changes. And if you aren't an AV person, you did kitchen improvements and home improvements and all the rest of it. And that was money not being spent on cars. Car manufacturers, we had this discussion, had a grim year, although things seem to be picking up for a few of them now. And obviously tour operators are on their knees and so on and so forth. There was a repurposing of the economy to cope with what was being done, and we don't yet know if things are going to resync or whether there's going to be a complete move in the other direction. If suddenly all travel restrictions are taken, whether everyone's just going to spend money on going somewhere after not going somewhere for nearly 18 months, 2 years. We just don't know. It pays to be super pragmatic at the moment if you're running a business in any of these categories, and I think what Sennheiser has done is a degree of pragmatism, and as you say, it's going to be interesting to see what goes on. But TV manufacturers, they had a great 2020. I dare say that they had a few things left in the bank. And from what you and Steve, when you were discussing the virtual press launches, which as we have to remind people every time, no one was there to see the products, it was them just telling us how great they were. Would it be? I think it's fair to say that there's still nothing truly revolutionary this year. It's still evolutionary stuff that could have been successfully done during lockdown.
Well, I don't know about that, because I think it's going to be interesting to see the LG panel this year, which is being used by Sony, LG, and obviously Panasonic, which has the extra brightness. It looks like there's been some pretty big changes there. So it's going to be interesting to see these when they come through. I'm talking about the A90J from Sony, the Panasonic JZ2000, and the G1 from LG. They're all going to potentially be using the same panel, potentially doing the same thing. And it looks like the panel structure has been changed slightly, and there's new compounds in there which has pushed brightness, and pushed brightness more than just what's been happening in the past 2 years with dissipating heat and having a heat sink in there. So it looks like it could be really quite interesting.
Well, in that case, it will be interesting to see how we get on. But it could have been as I said, it would appear that they had TV manufacturers had a good 2020. So, I mean, it could then be that having put all this effort in, with lots of people having bought a TV in 2020, they then don't in 2021. But then I guess if nothing else, they've got the technology there to just, keep out there for a couple of years and see how it goes.
I think a lot of TV manufacturers as well, when they've been talking at these events, and they've been pretty embarrassed actually that they've done so well on the back of COVID. It's kind of
no
tricky.
one wants to be seen to be profiteering off it, but nevertheless, there will always be winners and losers in these things.
Yeah, there will be. Right. So has the pandemic, has lockdown changed your perspective of AV? Have you been buying more kit? Have you been changing your intentions when it comes to your equipment purchases and other things? Let us know in the comments section underneath this podcast in the podcast forum, and we'll come back to this over the next few weeks. We'll see what has happened in terms of your purchases and what you've been looking at this year, what you're looking at in the year ahead. Is it still TVs, or have you replaced your TV? Are you looking for something else, or are you sick of AV and want to get out into the sunshine and
I think that's
frolic in the fields? And I think I think once they say right, lockdown's over, I think there's going to be a hell of a stampede outdoors. It's probably safer staying in.
We're going to have an orgy.
Are we? Okay.
Yeah, I've decided. I'm going to see if I can get my back working in time for that.
Ed's decided, so that becomes law. We'll get on the polish.
And we will be live streaming that.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we'll sell many tickets for that one. I don't think. Right?
Oh no! It's not. We're not selling anything. It's just compulsory to watch or participate. You're cool,
I thought we were going to set up an OnlyFans page. Were you not?
I don't know. Is there an interest in an AV Forums OnlyFans? I mean, Rule 34 exists, but it's worth seeing if it can be tested to destruction. So,
right. That's hardware for this podcast this week. We're going to move on to software next.
If you enjoy the podcast on YouTube, then please like and subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version, then please leave us a rating on your podcast app. We invite you to email questions and feedback to podcast@avforums.com and join in with this episode's discussion thread in the podcasts forum at AV Forums.
Ed, album of the week.
Right, let's be nice and quick on this one. Album of the week is it's an artist, and she's called Tamara Lindemann, but she puts stuff out as Tamara Lindemann, but she also puts some other things out as The Weather Station. And this actually came out last week, but none of the albums this week blew my frock up, so we're going to revisit this. And it is an album called Ignorance by The Weather Station. And I think it's a magnificent listen. Lindemann has a fantastic voice. She sounds great. Everyone who's working with her is a consummate musician. There's lots of different influences in this. Tom earlier on pointed out that there's some elements of Daughter and so on and so forth. There's some of the arrangements are very late talk for me, that sort of post rock sort of way of doing things. But she's got a fantastic voice. The songs have heart, they have meaning, they have a bit of passion to them. It's a bit different to some of the things I've been recommending in recent weeks. As you can see, you can buy it digitally on Bandcamp if the fancy takes you. You can do all sorts of things with CDs, vinyl, etc. It's on all the major streaming services. I just think it's not going to be for everybody, but I thought it was a good listen.
I've had it on repeat today, actually, and I've listened to a couple of other albums that were also on the same page, and had it on repeat. And to me, there's certain sound there that reminded me of Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks.
I thought, I've had it on this afternoon as well, and Stevie Nicks came to my mind as well. It was a really nice listen.
Yeah.
I mean, she's got a fabulous voice. And so, yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And before I sign off and we start talking about films, Condo 007 asked a bit earlier on whether my background was me soliciting for free booze. I am not soliciting for free booze. The background in this instance is a reference to the film that we quoted at the start and will quote again at the end of this podcast. My backgrounds break down into either something that's happened this week, something that's relevant to the film that we quote, or something that's relevant to the album that I'm quoting, or a photo of my cat. So that's what's going on.
He's not soliciting for free booze, but he will accept free booze.
I was just going to say exactly the same.
If you are a booze manufacturer listening to this and you wish me to endorse your products in real time, provided that the drink is not blue, I have very strong feelings about blue food. I am willing to give it a go.
Okay. Right. So that said, album of the week. It's definitely worth a listen. The three of us here have listened to it today, and yeah, very, very good.
Nice.
It's nice, soothing afternoon actually listening to that, and I was doing a little bit of writing as well at the same time, and it did help with that. Even though I deleted most of it afterwards.
We've all been there, don't worry.
Yeah, it's just one of those things at the minute. It's just you think you're writing greatness, and then you read it back, and
that happens to me the following morning, and someone's going to go, oh yeah, because you've been drinking. I don't. Very, very rarely do I turn in anything where I've actually alcohol's been involved. But you go off on a tangent. You think, well, this is going to work really well as a narrative, and you actually read it back and go, that's absolute bollocks.
Yeah.
But we do it so you don't have to suffer through it. So there you go.
As a virtue of my condition, my state, I frequently write things and then read them back and completely disagree with my own opinions. So
yeah, I think we'll do that as well.
I'm going to stick my neck out here. I generally speaking, when I have reached a decision on a product, I don't read it back and think my views have changed. I only want to change how I've put my views across.
Yes, that's what I meant to say. But the other thing is, when it gets proofed, and then I go back in after it's been proofed, and I think, has that been changed? Did the proofer change this sentence, because that doesn't sound like me? But no, I check my original document, and that is how I've written it.
Do you not get these scrupulously polite emails from Andy going, I see you've written this, and it's clear, and then brackets unwritten, and it's clearly bollocks. Do you mind if I change it to this? It's like, yeah, you go for it, mate. That's fine. Every time I upload stuff at the end of the month, I get an email from Andy a couple of days later going, I'm reading this at the moment, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like, you are absolutely right. It makes no sense at all. You go nuts on that.
Yeah, well, you're lucky you get the email so you can read it when you want. I get the Skype message, so I get it instantly saying, paragraph 2, line 6. Yeah, okay. Yes, you're right. That's wrong. Right, so let's move on to some film and TV stuff. Even though we did a film movies podcast on Monday, I hope you did tune into that. If not, then it is available. Go have a listen or a watch if you're on YouTube, and give us some feedback. Let us know what you think. We are up for feedback on this. It's a new format. It's just
the
something
first of anything. It needs to.
So we know that some things worked and some other bits need tweaking. But it'd be interesting to see what you think, and give us your feedback on that.
If your comment is, it was an hour too long, save it. We know.
Well, no, we went for the hour and ended up at 90 minutes, so it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad.
To be fair, the only feedback I'd give immediately, I don't know if Simon's watching or listening to this post. Simon, if you ever want to check, if you are talking about a program and you go, I don't know if anyone's heard of this, run it by me. If I've heard of it, the entire English-speaking world has heard of it. So, that's what if you like, I am an absolute benchmark on this, because I do not seek out the obscurities in life. So, yeah, see where we go from there.
So, Tom, do you want to give us a short review this podcast on something you've been watching that we should be keeping an eye out for?
Sure, it'll be shortish. How's about that? How does that sound?
That's all right. We'll just start interrupting you if you keep going on.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. Last week I watched Promising Young Woman, which was supposed to be released on the 12th, but did not materialize. Rumors abound that it could be to do with a agreed theatrical release that never happened, and then having to wait for the delay that is now in place between theatrical release and streaming release. I think there's a three working week delay for films that have an agreed theatrical release. So we think that's what's happened with Promising Young Woman, and expecting it around the beginning of March. But I watched it last week and I was absolutely blown away by it. It is the best film I have seen in 2021. I know that doesn't sound, but I have watched a lot of films this year, so it is praise. It's essentially a revenge movie. It's about a girl called Cassie who's dealing with an initially unnamed trauma in her past. And the way that she's dealing with it is by play acting drunk in clubs every Friday night in the hopes of being picked up by a nice guy looking to take advantage of her. But of course, once she's home alone with them, her demeanor changes and it goes from the guy's lucky night to the worst night of their lives. And it is not as simple as that sounds. It's written and directed by Emerald Fennell. She was the head writer for series 2 of Killing Eve, and she's a friend of Phoebe Waller-Bridge. So if you're familiar with that show, that will probably give you a clue as to the tone of the movie. It's plays around with a pitch black sense of humor on top of some really shocking and some quite heartfelt character-driven moments. So what's different about Promising Young Woman is that it doesn't really feel a necessity to pick a lane, as it were, to choose a tone and stick to it. It bounces between being a tearjerker, hysterically funny, shocking, like I said, moving, uplifting, frequently all of the above within the space of a couple of scenes. It's a roller coaster. It's very much a first movie, so it's not perfectly put together. And it has a couple of scenes that dangle without clear purpose, and the tonal shifts are difficult to keep up with sometimes. But all the little cracks, I suppose, in production are very easily papered over with the plot and the script, which just wrenches you along constantly. And the soundtrack, which is just full of really entertainingly reworked bubblegum pop songs. If you watch the trailer, and you should watch the trailer, you'll get a hint of it with a sinister orchestral arrangement of Britney Spears' Toxic, which is just magnificent.
To be fair, it's got a good string section in the main ones. So,
it is, yeah. The soundtrack is fun and funny, and set to some of the particularly dark events of the movie. There's a really, really awesome juxtaposition there. So yeah, in case it's not clear, it's essentially a movie about sexual assault, and specifically the issues within the US college system, which for eternity has struggled, or in some cases not even attempted to adequately address, like endemic problems of rape and or consent on campus. And it tackles with these thorny, nuanced issues by swinging a wrecking ball, basically indiscriminately bringing down everyone in its path. And it is seriously fun to see it do it. Way more fun than I can convey a movie about sexual assault to be. It is astonishing to watch. It's really aggressive, completely unabashed, like it's looking to piss people off and then laugh at them, basically, for getting pissed off. It doesn't try and come at any issues carefully, look for causes or solutions or context, not interested in that. It's just out to smash everything to pieces. And yeah, it's like being on a roller coaster from the very beginning. Like you strap in, you go on a couple of dips and a couple of curves, and it feels pretty fun. But then you look over to the side and you can see that the roller coaster just stops dead in midair, and that you are now heading for a fatal accident, and you're strapped in and you cannot go anywhere. And it is that adrenaline rush that turns from fun into a gruesome disaster waiting to happen. And yeah, I really can't recommend it enough. It is not a perfect movie, but it's
Tom, when this delay does happen, does finish, where can those of us keen to watch this roller coastery Britney Spears Fest. Watch it on.
It's PVOD, so it's premium. So it'll be for rental from, I think, just for maybe to buy, but I think just for rental initially from wherever you get your streaming movies from, iTunes, Amazon, Google, wherever. So you will have to pay for it initially.
No.
But worth it.
Not averse to paying for things.
Totally worth it.
Content needs to be paid for by some means or another.
Absolutely. And I watched it on Friday, and then I watched it again with my wife on the following day, and her response was
Saturday.
Yes, Saturday. I remember. But her response to it was, "Thanks for showing me that." And I think that says quite a lot about the film. It's completely amazing, and if you don't love it, you're going to absolutely hate it.
I do like binary. I've always time in this world for binary.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking forward already to the thread. Should be interesting.
Absolutely, the thread, as I do like to say, is going to be a shit show. But it's yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, look out for it.
All right, good stuff. Let's move things on then. Film and TV news. What do you want to talk about, Tom?
Oh, there's a few things going on. I've put on our little running order that we look at that Joss Whedon got cancelled again, but this time by everyone, not just by his ex-wife or the woman he cheated on her with. Like, it is known that Joss Whedon is a jerk. It is known, but this week it all came out where during the production of Justice League, it was alleged that Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg, had a particularly bad time with him, but no details came out. And actually, from Ray Fisher, no details have still come out. But Charisma Carpenter, who played Cordelia on Buffy, Michelle Trachtenberg, who played Dawn on Buffy, Sarah Michelle Gellar, vaguely, not she, platitudes, but came out in support of these people. David Boreanaz came out in support, who played Angel. And it has just been a slew of people he's worked with coming out to say, yes, he is an extremely hostile person to make television with. And it's not news by any stretch of the imagination. He has already been dropped, I believe, by HBO for the series that he was developing for them. So he's already well out of the good books in Hollywood. But it's been interesting to see everything start to
and this is all in the media,
out.
Isn't it? So it's it's public knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Twitter. It's Twitter.
The legal department will be relieved to hear that we're not none of these are completely unsubstantiated.
I am accusing him of nothing, but he appears to be not a very nice man.
Okay, allegedly reported to be.
Allegedly reported. Not a criminal so far. Nobody's reported on it, but just a very deeply unpleasant person to work with. So,
did you see that? It was doing the rounds that one of the Buffy people was. He wasn't drawn too much of a comment. He said, "I'm not going to comment too much at the moment because I'm about to be operated on for a paralyzed penis."
I did not see that.
Well, obviously, I look at worse parts of Twitter than you. I liked that. I love the way that you do. I'm not going into details about Joss Whedon, but by the way, I'm about to be operated on for my paralyzed penis. So make of that.
Yeah. Moving on swiftly.
Yes, there's in actual news, let's call it. Star is coming out next week on Disney. That's something really to look forward to, and there's some. There's so much to look forward to on there. Definitely. There is some interesting stuff coming out stateside this week as well, particularly on NBC. If you're a fan of American sitcoms, then there is a raft of them that look like they might be a hoot. And with the NBC deal with Netflix, we are likely to get them later in the year. So they're just worth a heads up. I think there's a sitcom called Young Rock, which has started this week, which is about Young the Rock. It is about Dwayne Johnson's formative years. Sort of everybody hates Chris, but about The Rock, which looks like it might be super fun. A sitcom about Kenan Thompson. So for anybody who was a child in the 90s, I am aware that I am showing my lack of age here, but he had the sitcom Kenan and Kel, which was a massive deal. And then he went on to Saturday Night Live, and he's just scored his own sitcom. So he's a funny guy. If you want to know a little bit about him, just Google Kenan, what's up with that?
Never heard him, but I've heard of The Rock, and I know somebody who's not here tonight who will be incredibly excited.
Oh, God. I mean, any rock content.
Yeah.
Greased up and ready. So
it looks like fun. It goes through, I think, 4 stages of The Rock's life. So there are 4 actors playing. Well, no, there are 3 actors playing him, and him as a future version of himself who is a presidential candidate. So it looks like it might be a laugh. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Apologies to Stuart. We did that thing we did on Monday where we started talking about something. You got an image up and we started talking about something.
Yes.
Apologies.
Lee has said no one's mentioned Gina Carano.
Yeah, I don't think it's
real...
going to get mentioned either when Mandalorian comes back. I think it's quietly forgotten.
Or I have to go. My planet needs me. No,
Gina Carantled, as I've been referring to her. Yeah.
Fundamentally, it's perfectly possible to believe that some of the means in which we retrospectively judge people for saying things in 2020, 2021 might be considered to be unduly harsh, and at the same time look at what she posted and go, I don't think that was the smartest career move you've ever made.
The long and the short of it is that she said something which brought her employer into potentially disrepute, and that is grounds for a firing. Sorry, Gina Carano, it just is. Like, however offensive it objectively was or wasn't, the House of Mouse is strict on these things, and you cannot get away with that. So yeah, unfortunately, whatever the future holds for her, it is not a job with Disney.
No. Right. Have we got any other news that we need to be?
Just one that was exciting for me particularly because I'm a massive nerd. On theonering.net, there was an official announcement from Amazon about the forthcoming Lord of the Rings TV series.
Lord of the Rings. I was wondering what the website was you were talking about.
Are they going to be using a new and previously unseen speed of frame rate? Like 256 frames a second or something?
There is no involvement from Peter Jackson whatsoever, so no, it will look like a television show.
Well, no, but that was the problem with The Hobbit. It did look like a television show.
Oh boy. The less said, the better. But yeah, so the announcement was very simple, and it was just confirmation that the new TV series is going to be set in the Second Age, which is way before, thousands of years before the events of the Lord of the Rings, and it hinting that it's likely to be about the downfall of Numenor, which is Tolkien's version of Atlantis, an advanced society of humans who are corrupted and are eventually destroyed. I guess spoilers for this, but the Silmarillion's been out for a very long time, so I'm sorry if you've not read it, but you should, because I think
that they should have had the courage of their convictions and actually shot it in the Black Country.
Absolutely, that would be brilliant.
And just none of this New Zealand stuff, and actually just looked at the stuff that Tolkien managed to turn into a fantasy universe and just run with it.
For extra nerd points, if you really want to go into deep weird lore for Tolkien, the end of the Second Age is also when the land Arda, where Middle-earth is, goes from being a flat world into a globe.
That's going to be quite a significant event for the people involved,
isn't it? Just I'm massively looking forward to it.
Opposed to the actual Earth in the 21st century, where as far as many people are concerned, it's gone from a globe to being flat. There's a pleasing sort of synchronicity to that.
It's going to be a bitter pill to swallow for some people, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm probably the only one here that doesn't like Lord of the Rings and never really got into it. So
it is my obsession. I love it.
I have a lot of time for Tolkien, but he could have done with someone standing just behind him going, do you actually need that? I mean, George R.R. Martin needs an army of them, but he could have done with someone just going, do you know what? For pacing, that probably doesn't need to be there.
Well, the weird thing is that Tolkien sort of had that. I mean, he did have an editor. He wasn't just allowed to roam free. Strangely, once he passed away and all of his writings fell into the hands of his son Christopher, there was no editing, and it was all released. All of his musings and little stuff he'd written on the back of a beer mat, and that stuff can be arduous to get through. And that the Silmarillion is a part of that. So yeah, you've got to be a diehard fan. So,
yeah, I mean, I just found the books hard going. As I read, I did find them hard going. So and then when the films came around, it didn't connect with me for whatever reason. I mean, it looked beautiful. Technically, it was it looked amazing and all the rest of it, but it never really grabbed me. So I'll be interested to see whether I give the TV show.
I thoroughly enjoy The Two Towers. I think of the three originals, as just in terms of it flows nicely. I've always thoroughly enjoyed it. Every now and again I will watch the trilogy. Normally when I've injured myself and I can't move around. But no, I'm somewhere between the two positions of Mr. Davies and Mr. Hinton on this. So I can. I mean, whereas
in the middle.
And I think that's probably going to be the case for most of the people. And it's also worth bearing in mind that during the development of this show, Jeff Bezos sort of came out and demanded his own Game of Thrones, essentially. So I would imagine there's going to be heavy influence of that sort of grimdark.
A fair bit of money at the screen.
A fair bit of money and maybe some boobs.
I mean,
if they're going to shoot in New Zealand, they've probably made the right choice there, given it's
provided that New Zealand lets them in.
And provided they're allowed in, it's probably been a good move. So.
Yeah, I mean, all the production. I might be wrong about this. I think, don't quote me, but I do think it's the Weta Workshop, which is the special effects group. New Zealand anyway. That is based in New Zealand, exactly. So we'll see what comes of that. That'll be interesting.
Right, moving things on. Disc news.
Yeah, the 4K schedule hasn't since Kaz rattled off the list of everything until May. It's not changed. Like that's what. That's it.
We're locked in now.
But there's some pretty cool re-releases coming up that if you are looking to pad out your library, there's some good picks in the next couple of months. Just for example, Criterion Collection, if you're a collector of those things, and if you're also a enjoyer of Wes Anderson, Grand Budapest Hotel is coming out the 22nd of this month and is part of our Criterion Collection competition. So if you want that, go and enter the competition. But also the Darjeeling Limited is coming out in March. So those will be nice to see. They got very beautiful covers, and I'm sure they'll have some very interesting documentaries on them as well. So if you're a Wes Anderson fan, that's worth padding your collection out with. Also, Criterion are putting out Kagemusha, which I'm quite excited about because I have not seen it. It's one of the Akira Kurosawa movies that I've not seen. And Criterion are putting it out on the 8th of March. And it's about a thief who is haunted by the ghost of the Lord he's impersonating. And it is full of psychedelic dreams. It's Kurosawa in color, and boy, oh boy, is it ever in color. If you find some screen grabs of it, it looks like a trip. So I think I'm going to be plumping for that when it comes out.
Fair enough.
And just a couple of other things, but niche things for sure. Eureka is putting out, which is the Soviet horror movie from the 60s, which is based on the Nikolai Gogol witch story from the 1820s.
Yes, that's quite niche.
Very influential.
Quite niche.
Very niche, but a super influential movie, but Soviet horror, yes. And less niche and more schlock is It Came From Beneath the Sea, which Indicator are putting out on the 22nd of March. It is, I think, the first Ray Harryhausen special effects movie, and it is a giant octopus. So if you are a fan of special effects, stop motion in particular, Ray Harryhausen, it's a must-have. That's probably about it for now. That'll do.
Okay, and we don't have a TV show review this week either.
But MasterChef starts on March the 1st.
Well, I was just going to say, what are we watching and what are we going to look for this week? So MasterChef for you, Ed?
Yeah, that's simple enough for me. There's not a lot else that I'm paying any attention to. So
yeah, that's the problem. That's why there's no review this week. There's nothing really new that's worth paying attention to. I'm going to just continue working my way through Deadwood.
Isn't this the squeeze that we are now at the point? It's the squeeze where the limitations of shooting many things, which would have been done during the summer for release now, didn't happen. I mean, MasterChef would have presumably been done under the same heavily separated conditions that MasterChef the Professionals was done under. So that's fine. That's made it through. And then other reality items have made it into the schedule. But in terms of shooting, elaborate dramas and things, this is where we have content holes, so to speak.
Yeah, it's something strange about watching QI with no audience.
Yes,
that's a strange experience, that one.
I thought the same about Have I Got News for You. It just feels a bit odd.
Yeah, Mock the Week as well, where they had their Zoom audience, but it's still they're still obviously putting a laughter track over there as well.
I mean, Taskmaster seemed to manage to get some people in at certain points on it, and I think Taskmaster, I mean, obviously that was a big deal for them because it was the move from Dave to Channel 4, and I think they did as good a job as could be expected under the circumstances, but it still wasn't quite the same as it had been in the more intimate, non-socially distanced context that it had been prior to that point. So yeah, I mean, it's in some regards, it's a testament to human ingenuity that we've got any of these things. But it does mean, as you say, that some of the more drama-y stuff is there's just not as much of it at the moment, and they're going to have to space it out a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm racking my brain here trying to think what I've actually been watching, and it's basically catching up on stuff that I discussed on Monday night, so I don't need to go through it yet again.
I've been watching episodes of Police Interceptors on 5 catch-up, and for whatever reason, I still find myself rewatching episodes of A Touch of Frost, even though I know absolutely everything that happens in all of them, because I've watched them all at least 7 or 8 times. For whatever reason, they are my idea of relaxation television. So that probably reflects badly on me, but there you go.
Yeah, I think we're all waiting. Well, it's 5 days now, isn't it? Really, that we have to wait till Star launches.
Yeah, but as I understand it, there's still not an orgy of air crash investigation for me to get stuck into.
Well, I've got plenty of investigation.
Oh, there's. Well, I mean, on Now TV, it's just rattling through some of the most recent stuff, but I could have just done with all of them being there in the same way that I can watch any episode of The Simpsons when I feel like it. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Disney will get my money for another year.
Yeah, I mean, it's been rightly pointed out in the live chat that Star coming also comes with a price increase. But if you're going to complain about the pricing, just take a look at what you're getting for the money. And
Disney is still the best bang for buck of the lot. I completely agree with Phil that Amazon has upped their game and has made it slightly less offensively hard to search. Netflix is still... My concern with Netflix is that what made Netflix great is that you could sit down and watch every episode of MacGyver if you felt like it. I know what they're doing, and they're covering off not having access to old content because somebody who actually owns it is putting it on their own streaming service. But nevertheless, much as I enjoy Tom's reviews of things like Outside the Wire or whatever it is, I don't want to watch them. So this scheduling, the budget to keep churning out these fundamentally indifferent movies is, I get what they're trying to do. I just don't know how long I myself will endorse it.
Yeah. The thing with Netflix at the minute for me is the crime documentaries.
This is the thing they brilliant. Do. They are, to be clear, again for me, like as you say, they're doing enough for me to swallow this price rise and be done with it
Well,
for another year.
this one, I want to see it. I haven't seen it yet. Is it the Hotel Cecil?
Yeah, that looks really weird.
It looks really good because it has a bit of a crossover with the Night Stalker Ed.
Right, fair enough.
It looks like that could be quite interesting. If you're like me and you like your documentaries on Channel 4 or BBC 4 or BBC 2, Stonehenge, the Lost Circle Revealed is a new documentary.
Is this the one where it was originally in Wales?
The Bluestones. So it's a story of the Bluestones and how they actually discovered where exactly the Bluestones came from, where they went to first, and then why they were possibly moved then to create Stonehenge. And it was, if you're a bit of a history, you like that kind of thing, I thoroughly enjoyed that. I thought it was really good little documentary, and that's on iPlayer on BBC 2, so worth looking at if you're interested in that. And of course you've got that song about Stonehenge on YouTube with which is rather entertaining.
What, you mean the Spinal Tap one?
No, the one by him who did What Noise Does the Fox Make? Or whatever.
Oh right, sorry, I was just thinking. Obviously, on Twitter today, there was a man who'd been called in for his COVID vaccination, like Phil, but unlike Phil, he's not particularly old. So he rang up his doctor surgery going,
old, like
he's this chap is younger than you. Let's put it like that. He's younger than me as well. He goes, I don't understand why I've been called in. And essentially, they dug through his medical records, and instead of listing him as being 6'2", they listed him as being 6.2 centimeters tall, which meant that his BMI was 28,000. So as someone with overweight to the point where he has the density of a neutron star, he'd been
we've been referring to him as Pancake Man in this house because to be that short and that you'd have to be really wide, wouldn't you?
You'd have to be an extraordinary piece of human biology. So yeah, that cheered me up no end. But I'd lost my train of thought completely. So.
No,
it's just I think it's time to call it a night then.
Yeah. We're podcasted out this week. We've done two in a row. So before we go though, there is a small matter of a podcast competition. So do you want?
Right, shall I do it? I've got it in front of me.
Oh, go on then.
Right. To win a copy of Whiplash in 4K, just use the following question to select the correct answer from the competition page. Which one of these actors plays the drill instructor-like mentor in Whiplash? I can't tell you how many people have already entered it and got it wrong. That's Kaz's specific, that's his skill. So, but you should all know that. And I will just say, I've not obviously seen it in the 4K release, but for many, many years, the final caravan rendition sequence of Whiplash was my go-to multi-channel test sequence because it did things that no other piece of multi-channel encoding did in terms of tonality, speed, complexity, and the way that it moved effects around the room was completely different to explosions and chases and stuff like that because you had a basis for it in reality. And I have every based on the review and so on and so forth, I have every expectation that it will be sensational on the UHD disc.
Yep, should be. Right, that's it for tonight. My thanks to Ed Selley.
Oh God, hang on, quotes. I hope you've had enough to drink. It's going to take courage.
And Tom Davies.
Inaudible whispering.
If you enjoyed the podcast, then please give us a like. Giving us a like is important. It means that the algorithm works in our favor and people can find the AV Forums podcast on YouTube and subscribe and find us and come and listen. So if you are watching, you're still around on YouTube, or if you're watching or listening during the week, then please do hit the like button. It is appreciated. It does help us. Also, if you feel like it, then please do subscribe to the channel, and you can also hit the notification bell, and it'll tell you every time we upload a new live stream or product review or so on. And there is a TV review coming this week, so keep your eyes out for that. That will be coming up on the YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. You can bookmark avforums.com for latest reviews, news, and video. And of course, you can leave us a 5-star rating on whichever service you use to listen to us. If they allow it, then please do give us a 5-star rating, or however many stars they let you give us. 10
all
stars.
The stars.
If they do.
All the stars.
Give us all the stars. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.